Bam, we are back. And the cool thing is, we're actually on a good schedule. We're getting a podcast out a week. Life is getting a little bit more structured. How are we doing, Mr. Ed?
Very good. I'm sitting in the sun for the first time this year, I think, out the back of my place, squinting, which is
Beautiful.
nice. And
Yeah,
it's warm. Like the sun is warm. I think there's 2 weeks and then the vitamin D starts
lovely.
getting made. Um,
Beautiful.
so yeah, all pretty good. I was trying to think about a nice segue into our conversation today, but it didn't come up. So you're going to have to
But the
introduce
sun
it.
is there, which is the important part.
Sun's here.
Well, at least you're wearing a sweet moved hoodie, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, probably needs a wash.
um, yeah, so speaking of moved, I've been doing some research and kind of been trying to figure out where it needs to stand as far as getting coaches to come in. And a lot of the coaches that have come in are usually coaches or PTs or professionals that have known us for quite some time. And then they decide to make the jump into moved. I think what I really want to try and cover today is, when you're a brand new coach or a new personal trainer, what are the do's, what are the don'ts? We can share a little bit of our experience. I can try and remember my experience like if it was a D-Day of sorts, right? I mean, I've been doing this now for almost half of my life. Um, so I have some skin in the game. I've come across a few cases, but seeing new coaches and new PTs that come into moved, and we start talking about these cases, it makes me wonder, this we kind of talk about this sort of manifestation or this sort of free energy principle, right? Where you start to see things and then therefore more and more of that kind of comes into your life. And it's been interesting to see the moved coaches that have these extreme cases of, massive trauma and past events. And, you're seeing a lot more clients that are coming into these new professionals, and they're coming in and being extremely open about their anxiety, their manic depressive nuances and behaviors. And we have a little bit of extremes happening. So I don't know, do you want to share a little bit about, a couple of podcasts ago you were talking about you coming in as a medical student, a broken athlete bodybuilder, and then getting into the space of coaching and starting to train people in movement? What has been kind of your biggest takeaways and your biggest lessons learned?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose why is it relevant for coaches to hear this is because, at least in a lot of cases, I've seen brand new PTs. They'll be working a Globo gym. They'll have somebody come work with them. They'll get their, I don't know how it works. They'll have their 6 sessions or 10 sessions or 12 sessions with them, and then on session 6 or 7, this person's fairly deconditioned and they've been training consistently for a couple of weeks, and then suddenly their shoulder will start hurting or their knee will start hurting. And I think the upgrade that the moved coaches have is, even if the pain comes, they're still the person that person can keep going to. Whereas in the Globo gym and with the PTs who are maybe less experienced or haven't learned the nuances of what we teach at Moved Academy, they then have to pass that person either to a physio, or they have to stop coaching them, or they're afraid to keep coaching them, or they just train around the injury and it never gets better. And I think
Right.
that's an important thing to say is, if you're interested in being a better coach, that's what you can offer. Is if somebody is going to work with you, you can give them a much longer time frame of, even if there's things that pop up, you can keep moving forwards. For me, I had a very varied training history. I mean, not so varied initially. I did the whole bodybuilder thing where training is not very varied at all. You do the same thing day in, day out, like week in, week
Day in,
out,
day
same
out. Yeah.
macros, and do the bulking and cutting cycles, but without really ever knowing why you're doing them. And I liked to train to give me headspace when I was going through my studying. And then something changed in my second or third year where I thought I needed to move, but to be more social with it. and that was kind of when the world was getting into functional fitness. And I think I saw Charles Poliquin working with Dmitry Klokov, and both of them are kind
Okay.
of interesting personalities. Klokov particularly
Yeah.
interesting. You'd see these YouTube videos where he'd rock up to Poliquin's seminar and just snatch like 180 kilos and scream and shout a bit, and then teach somebody how to snatch and punch them in the face.
Right.
So, okay, that's kind of cool. So went to a CrossFit gym, and within the first few weeks, like my left ankle was sore, my back was sore, my wrist and shoulder was sore. So like I had the insight at that time to be like, CrossFit is a really good screening tool for helping people get
Hmm.
better, as opposed to it's a really bad sport because people get injured quickly.
Right.
And it was that shift in perspective of, oh, I can use these symptoms, aches, pains, to work out what the problems are, because I was still doing different sports, hockey, and needing to be active in my job as a doctor in the hospital.
Right.
So I went down the whole rabbit hole of trying to work out why. And like, people go through different phases when they have pains. Sorry if there's background noise. They go through phases when they have pains. I think the first step is like all the mobility work. So Kelly Starrett, like stretching, and that becomes a whole 20-30 minute routine at the start of your CrossFit training session of like, oh, you're making sure everything feels kind of good and loose. And then you do your session, and then you finish it, and then you go to bed and you wake up and you feel like you've been hit by a truck and everything's twice as tight
Right.
as it was the day before.
Yeah.
So it was okay, well, that doesn't seem to work. And the same with other people that I would experiment on. Again, doing manual releases and stretches. Again, it would relieve the discomfort for the session, and then it would come back twice as much next. So
Yeah.
I was never a coach. I was always just interested in bettering myself. I came to your assessment seminar after doing an online seminar with StrongFit, and
Right.
your assessment seminar was an emotional experience, I
Was
guess.
it?
Well, I wasn't aware of it at the time, but like, yeah, I remember like doing a sandbag carry, and on the way back, just like tears coming out of my eyes, not in an emotional way. I was just like, this is really difficult. And now for some reason I'm crying and still carrying the bag. And then connecting to my chest properly for the first time in a long time, doing a back squat in front of a group of people with a decent amount of weight without any pain, and be like, oh, there's something here. There's a way that we can use breathing very specifically. There's a way that we can coach and give cues in a way that we're not looking at position, but we're creating the correct tension. And I
Right.
see and tend to see like these approaches that are, I guess, more esoteric, that can be helpful for people's health. And they become less esoteric over time because there just needs to be a mass effect of more people understanding them, and then it becomes the norm. So I took everything I learned at your assessment seminar and was gradually just doing assessments on people with very simple shoulder pain, and built up from there.
Now, you coming from the medical world, you had an understanding of anatomy and physiology of sorts, right? I mean, you guys, they do teach some of that. You do learn that in medical school.
Well, actually, I would
So
probably
you
say
had an
you come out pretty
understanding.
well. Yeah, you know a lot of that.
Okay, yeah,
In medical school, you know all of the
right,
stuff. As you go past it, like you start to lose that knowledge because it's very there's a lot of it to keep in your brain.
right.
They were my strong points, so yeah, that kind of helped.
And so, what was your first assessment like when you had, after the assessment seminar, you kind of had all this knowledge that, whether it made sense or didn't make sense, or, the sort of information, and then that application of that first assessment, was it pretty simple? Was it overwhelming?
It was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. It was a case of, I mean, I think the main point was get your client to tell you how they feel, which is obviously something
Yeah.
that's important. And maybe we do more in the medical world. In the fitness world, it's like, oh, well done, you made it to 10 reps kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think my first ever assessment was, again, I could see how by doing the oblique opener back then, how disconnected their upper and lower body was, coming from a specific sporting background. So it kind of followed the medical approach, which is take a history, which is movement and traumas associated with movement and or others, and then you do your eye test, and then you get your assessment comes more and more specific as you kind of tick things off.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a challenge, and the only way that I found that I could get better at doing the assessments was trying to convince other people to let me do an assessment on them. And the more that you do, the more that you take pictures, the more you video and discuss with the person, the better your eye becomes at spotting things, or your process of, I've seen this pattern before, I know that if I use a specific movement that I've seen more frequently, then I'll be able to help more quickly. And
Right.
yeah, it was just building up from the physical, very physical perspective first. And I think a lot of people come into Moved wanting to get straight into the emotional mapping, on all of that side of things, but you really do have to go back to the physical work first as a base
Always
to then build up to there.
emotional and all the other things. Because I mean, it can get overwhelming. If you were to tell me, as my first ever well, not even PT, my first ever job coaching was I was shadowing at a CrossFit gym in my hometown, and the dude threw out his back, and I got a call from the owner saying, "Hey, can you cover class tomorrow? You're going to do Fight Gone Bad. This is what you have to do. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Sure." No coaching experience whatsoever. This is probably 6 months after I've started walking without crutches and, being able to move around. But this is after my rock climbing accident. And I show up to the gym in the morning and I say, "This is Fight Gone Bad." And, out of not even caring about standard range of motion, I had nothing. The biggest thing that I was more concerned about was like keeping the time, because that's what Fight Gone Bad was: is you do 1 minute of this and you switch over to the next one. So I was basically just being a cheerleader and trying to get people to go from exercise to exercise. Um, and as I started to, you get your CrossFit certification, which is a weekend, which I think that it's a great starting position, gives a lot of information in that weekend. Of course, it requires a lot more time to develop the skills necessary, but it does give you a fundamental baseline to go see clients move. And I think it does so much better than, taking an NASM test, or as far as the practical side goes. Um, and that's really where, for me, it's like it can become so overwhelming, just the physical component of coaching, that getting into the mental or the emotional stuff at the beginning, even if you have the background information, it's still so extremely overwhelming, because at the end of the day, the medium that you're using as a personal trainer or coach is movement and physical stress. So that's what we should be really focusing on developing. Because if you can help people physically, it'll transfer over to the mental and emotional health,
Yeah.
right? So it's been an interesting. I think that at least I get so caught up into coaching clients and the clients that come see me because of referrals. And I get so caught up in this world that I forget where we actually started, right? Where any PT or coach starts, and usually it's a passion of wanting to help people and get people to build confidence for themselves. And it's usually a means or a reflection of self, right? And so I got into the movement industry because it was a reflection of showing and proving to myself that I could do way more than the medical world at the time was telling me I could do. And that reflection built up over time. And as I've had, turmoil or, you know, different FUs to myself, that would reflect in my coaching and in my training. And so I think that a lot of people that are getting into this space, like the first and foremost is you have to look for mentors. I wish I had more mentors early on in my coaching career. I think I had a few, but definitely not ones that actually devoted time to really helping me bring up my craft, my eye. And of course that forced me to do a lot of reps. But I think that for a lot of coaches out there and PTs, it can lead you to burnout because then you're just fighting for clients at a global gym, or you're trying to work on the business side and not so much on the craft of what you're trying to do and accomplish. You lose sight of that true vision that you had for yourself. So I think like looking for mentors that can give you a more diversified spectrum of how you can practice is a big one. And I think more importantly, seeing mentors that are there to help you evolve, not to give you more information that is just going to become more overwhelming and more than likely just disregarded when it comes to practical application. I
Yeah,
think that's a big one.
for sure. And I like it makes me reflect on, because my fitness background was in hockey, so I had various hockey coaches growing up. Some of them that I really respected, and certain events around games where they would speak to me in a certain way, and it would give me energy to, even if what they said seemed negative, I would use that to fuel me to change how I was playing, as opposed to not really responding to the whole soft side of things.
Right.
And I think, again, I'm lucky in that I'm a fairly technical person, but I found myself doing like teaching in a special needs school where I had to learn the soft skills of managing like emotional intensity, and then medical school where you have to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations and maybe quite stressful situations as well. And I did a bit of hockey coaching too, so more group level coaching. But then the one to one certainly does evolve, and as you evolve as a person, you can evolve the type of clients that you end up working with. It would be nice if people just came to me for simple shoulder pain now.
Every once in a while. Can we just simplify this for a second, people? Yeah, shit gets a bit heavy sometimes. Um, yeah, I think yeah. So I mean, for me, the first thing for any sort of coach is keep it simple from the beginning. Focus on what your true medium is, which is movement and understanding, getting clients and how you're going to get your clients from A to B. I think there's a lot more of human connection there than just following the methodology or the program, which is what I think a lot of new coaches really want to try and do is, we're going to write down this well balanced program and you're going to follow it to the T, and that's how you're going to get from A to B, which will help, right, to a certain extent. But what you were saying earlier about, starting your functional fitness and you start to get the wrist pain and you get the elbow pain and the knee pain. Um, I used to kill people. Like we would do this horrible workouts and you wouldn't be able to walk or sit down on the toilet. And I was like, well, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And I used to always say, like, if your elbow's hurting, then it starts to show where the weak points are in the body. Let's make them stronger, right? Yes and no. I think that there's a much better approach to getting people healthier and getting them to that point of performance. Um, you know, as we talk about, lower skilled exercises, higher intensity, low eccentric work, sled work, sandbag work, real world objects rather than using barbells or higher skilled exercises is a great way to build foundation and structure for anybody new coming into the space. If you're a coach, that last little bit, go back and listen to it. It's going to help you out a lot, especially when you start to have clients that are with you for more than 6 months or a year, because that's usually where you will start to see some of these sort of nagging pains really pop up in the shoulder, the hips, the elbows, because the skill and the structure now start to meet. And that's where you really start to overstress the body, or you can overstress the body. And this is where the displacement of tension from the glutes to the lumbar erectors will really start to kind of kick in. So keeping it simple. is a big one. But yeah, I think the second thing that I would add after getting lots of mentors and really starting to, have people that can help guide you along and teach you things is you need to practice. And I see a lot of online personalities, and I see a lot of keyboard warriors out there that have all of this information, but yet, I've been starting to get haters on my Instagram page, which is kind of cool. It means I'm doing something right. But when you go to see their page, or I should do the Joe Rogan, but I'm not popular enough yet to not read the comments. But as you start to go on their page, they have nothing posted about themselves. They have, they don't show anything about themselves to put themselves out there, which seems kind of interesting, but yet you have all the information in the world. So, there's a whole lot of analyzing that you could do. There's a whole lot of books you can read. But when you have that human in front of you and they cannot complete the task, or, the coordination is not there, the skill's not there, the neural output's not there, muscle quality is not there. It's not a perfect, beautiful human anatomy. So meaning they're overweight and you can't really see what's going on. That's where shit kind of gets real when you're in the trenches, right? The theoretical kind of goes out the window at that point. So I think the more and more hours you have on the practical side of things, on the actual working with humans, you really start to learn a whole lot about what what really does help and doesn't help from what you've read and in your studies.
Yeah. And I mean, to put that into perspective for people, I watched you teach Mark Bell how to bench press, and he's one of the most
This whole brand
famous
is
people
around
known for
bench
bench
pressing.
pressing. Yeah. So there's many ways that you can do one thing. It's just knowing that you don't know all the ways yet. I guess for people who do want to start, who maybe aren't, or they're a PT and they want to start to understand some of the principles and concepts that we teach, or you teach, Move teaches. Is there something that you would say to them, go away and try it and see what happens? Like, even if it's, I don't know, go press a sandbag for X number of days in a row and with Hayes constraints, or
Yeah.
just to learn something
I
about
mean,
themselves?
I think biggest the biggest thing, and I would say, almost everything that you want to learn is already out there for free. I think I've already said it. I have like 8,000 reels out there, not 8,000, but I have quite a few reels out there talking about it. The one thing that you can do to help anybody that you're working with, especially if they're coming in with discomfort or pain anywhere in the body, is understand the joint that is hurting. So whether it's the shoulder or the hips, the knees, the elbows, listen to your breath for mobility, right? So as you inhale, you elongate the muscle that you're looking for. It's going to get the muscle to its longest end range in the safe manner, the longest end range that it can currently move at. What that's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow the body to feel safe now moving. It's going to bring up the neural output of the right muscles. And then from there, we can, as we raise the neural output, you're going to raise the muscle quality and quantity, and you'll be able to lengthen that muscle more, right? So I think that listening to your breath while you're moving, again, I always use this as a simple example because some people are sitting, maybe driving in a car, whatever. You can always take your opposite hand, put it on the chest, contract it, inhale as you press up or out or in any direction, and it's going to show you how far you can move while maintaining tension in the pec. Now, if you have tension in the pec, you're also going to have tension in the teres major because they work together as a unit. If you do it for the bicep, the pec's going to also engage a tiny bit, right? So depending on which muscle you're looking for. But this is really the best thing that you can use if you're a client that has, if you're a PT or a coach, you have somebody coming in with shoulder pain, you just do push-ups to the end range of the pecs and the teres major. You start at the top, and then you inhale in the eccentric phase, and you exhale in the concentric phase. Don't care about getting the chest to the ground. Care about keeping the chest engaged while you're doing the push-ups. I had that happen the other day with somebody sent me a message on Instagram. And I was like, send me pictures of your push-up. And they sent me pictures of the video of the push-up. And I was like, okay, so now listen to your breath. Like you're going past your breath. And you can see the shoulder takes over, the mid-trap takes over. we did a few sets and it minimized the discomfort. It's very, very simple and it's very quick to act, right? It's a very fast change for the body to feel safe and then confident to take action. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways as a new coach. You don't need to join the mentoring program for that one, but just
Well, that's what hooked me, right? Is the fact it can be such a quick change. Like it's such a simple
right,
thing to do, and it can happen. Say you've got shoulder pain that's been there for almost a year, and somebody teaches you how to do this, and it goes away in like 20 minutes or however long. That
right.
it seems ridiculous that that can be possible. And like in medicine, everything is like linear progression. You're going to get better slowly, and it just isn't. It's like a very quick evolution and change in perspective. And oh, now my shoulder is much better just because I followed a different way of trying to do a push-up. Show me the studies.
Right. Show me the studies. Well, speaking of studies, we will start to have studies, right, Ed? Um,
That's the goal.
so, in order to become a moved coach, part of the certification process is going to require time put in, which will be 120 assessments. Um, and I think that's going to be phenomenal because A, it's going to start to bring up the level of coaching around the world, give it 5 to 10 years. But it's also going to give us a shit ton of data points that will prove that what we're teaching is the right way. And if we're fucking it up or it's failing, then we can actually have some corrections and we can make changes as needed, right? Because there are no absolutes in this world, and all we're trying to do is follow the principles to make sure that people can, provide. I provide a couple different methods, but if you can come up with your own, that's the biggest thing. You understand how the body is moving and how we can get people to feel better, whether it's out of pain, physically, mentally, or emotionally. But in the beginning, keep it fucking simple. Low skilled exercises don't require too much skill from your clients because I've worked with coaches that have been in it for 15, 20 years and they can't do a jumping pull up because they retract their shoulder and they go to their neck. And this is where you start to see people that have been coaching for a long time. They profess one thing, but they're continuously riddled with pain. And, keep it simple. Go to jumping pull ups, go to rope pulls, go to sandbag or, goblet carries. Keep things between your hands. Build up the tension of the bigger structural muscles first. Keep it all through, a simple scope of skill required for exercises. Don't start doing what are they called? One arm kettlebell overhead reverse walking lunges with a band around their knee to bring out the glute med. And you know what I mean? Like, keep it simple. The more simple you can keep it, the more you're going to be able to learn and get out of it, by the way, because then you can actually stress the athlete or your client enough to see where they're displacing the tension. That starts to make a whole lot more sense. Um, but they're going to get a lot more out of it. They're going to start to feel independent. They're going to start to actually notice the changes rather than just trying to figure out the coordination for the first 45 minutes and then nothing really happens.
Yeah, I was thinking as you said that your mantra of interoception, proprioception, and then action after. Like
Yeah,
if you just use the bands and stuff and all these techniques to improve your proprioception, then you're just going to lose the interoception. So
right.
start without them.
Yeah,
Just hug a heavy
yeah.
thing.
I think that there's that fine balance of what you need and when you need it, right? So it's sometimes we do need more interoception. I have clients that don't need any more interoception because they are completely so into what every little muscle feels that they can never actually go out and express it. So then at some point you need to go out and express, and that's where you can have that balance of like how much of interoception do you need? You need just enough so you can have proprioception, understanding where you are in the world, so you can know exactly how to act and behave in this world, right? Or what needs to be expressed. And so some people need a lot more expression, some people need a lot more interoception. Some people are so far out there they're just that's where you see the burnout happening with these high performers and adrenal fatigue with athletes and all of this. That's because they need a little bit more interoception to understand what's happening inside. They don't feel safe inside, so everything goes towards the outside. And so it's everything requires balance. Bam. So new coaches, keep it simple. Look for mentors. It doesn't need to be us, but if you want it to be us, head on over to Moved Academy or send us a message. But look for mentors. Look for a lot of mentors, and that's also the goal with Moved Academy. Is I want to bring in people and have a panel of mentees or mentees that become mentors because they put in the time and they've learned, and they have different disciplines. But go look for new mentors. There's lots of great influential people in the fitness and health space. Um, Search for them and learn and shadow and have application. Go practice and go train everybody and their mothers, and go train your own mothers, and you know train everybody. It's going to teach you a whole lot about where you where you are in this world. I think that gives you the proprioception of understanding how good or not good you are at your craft. And I've had plenty of ups and downs as that is, with how well I am with working with clients and not with all clients. It allows you to see the type of clients that you enjoy working with the most. But practice a lot more than just analyze. It's great about having all this information in your head, but if you're not actually applying it, then it's just kind of staying there. There's no point in it. Then you're just chat GPT at that point, right? Let's put application to it and keep it simple. If you're just starting out, keep it fucking simple.
I
Cool.
agree.
I agree. Beautiful. Well, it's a beautiful day there, Mr. Ed. Go get some sunshine. I have to go get on some calls and go get some training in. And guys, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.